Repat Stories, where we delve into the personal stories and challenges of persons who repatriated to their home countries after extended periods abroad. I'm Adrienne, I'm your host, and today we'll be talking to Sandi, who is actually a longtime friend of mine. And Sandi spent about 10 years in mainland China, or the People's Republic of China as it's officially called, and we're going to hear more about her story today.
Yes.
All right, so first of all, as we know, so this show takes the format of like home, then away, then home again.
Okay.
And so I want to know more about your time growing up in Jamaica. So first of all, just to give us, before we jump in 3 words, what was it like growing up in Jamaica? From like being a child to young adulthood.
I loved it.
Okay.
I love my childhood here. Yeah, it's going on road trips was such a norm for like me and my mom, and of course with all of you guys, like, or hangouts at my house.
And by we guys, she means, so we went to high school together, and so there was a bunch of us. We used this embarrassing acronym to refer to ourselves, but it's basically a bunch of girls that we've known each other for like a long time.
Man, ages. So yeah, having you guys, my community of friends, I had a great childhood coming up. No, there was no reason that I didn't dislike Jamaica, especially as a kid. I wasn't aware of high prices and all that. My parents, take care of everything. So growing up in Jamaica, I loved it, and I loved the friendships I made. I loved my family time, and high school was cool for me. I got to do Spanish, French, and I got a taste of foreign languages. I loved it. So yeah.
When did you know life was good, like financially? Like when did you know your life was like you weren't struggling in Jamaica?
I knew I wasn't struggling. I mean, I always kind of knew though. I was a fan of extracurriculars, right? For example, and all of that costs. So I wanted to be dancing, drumming, piano, tennis, netball, and I realized not everyone could do that. But my parents were just so supportive of me, and they were able to put me in everything I wanted to do. So I realized, okay, I really do have some amount of privilege in that sense. And when it was time when I left high school and got into law at UWI, and I realized law was $1 million a year.
Jamaican dollars.
Jamaican dollars, 1 million Jamaican dollars a year. International relations was probably around 250 grand.
So it's a quarter of that.
A quarter of that. And my dad, in my head, that's my first realization, okay, Jamaica is expensive.
Right.
And I thought, this is too much. I can't ask my parents
to pay for this.
I can't ask them to do that. But they were so, happy to do that. They said they'll find a way, they'll do it, no problem. Yeah. So it was just at that moment I realized, okay, things are really expensive out here, but I do have a lot of support.
Right.
However, I wasn't going to do that for $1 million, especially if I wasn't passionate about law. So that's the only reason why I really didn't pursue law at the time.
So you started university here. Did you finish the first degree here?
No, I didn't finish.
You didn't finish first degree here?
No. I started IR, International Relations, and we had to choose a foreign language. At the time, China was the fastest growing economy in the world, right? And all my uncles, my dad, aunts are saying, yeah, you have to do Chinese. You have to study Chinese Mandarin. That's the future. And then I always like to do different things. Everyone's choosing Spanish and French. No, I'm going to be the different one. I choose Chinese Mandarin. And for the first 2 years of UAE, I was in Jamaica and I was studying Mandarin. And my Chinese teacher said, you should apply for this scholarship. You're doing well in class. I was getting A's.
Yeah.
Every semester. Adrian, A's. If I was getting a C in political science, I got an A in Chinese, my GPA was like,
oh, that's awesome.
It pulled up my GPA for that reason. But yeah, I was doing well in it, and she said, try for a scholarship. You can do it. And that's when I got into China, and I got into like the opportunity to travel to China.
Okay, that's so interesting. So there was you could have stayed.
I could have stayed.
You were comfortable, you were being supported, but then you
Yeah.
had an opportunity to branch out and you were getting. So before we
Yeah.
actually go to China,
Right.
what are the considerations that you had to make to be like, yes, I'm actually doing this? Like, how old were you at the time?
I was about 19,
19.
going on 20.
Okay.
So I was thinking,
So still living at home, right?
still living at home with my
Okay.
mom.
Yeah.
So I've never lived by myself,
Right.
of course. So, but I have always had an adventurous spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you remember that. Like,
Yeah.
If there was somewhere, if I wanted to go to the girls' mobile,
Yeah,
whatsoever,
you're very
let's go.
nomadic. And it's not forced. It's like genuinely
Yeah.
just like you'll just go. Like you'll just
Yeah, and I didn't realize it at the time, but the
Yeah.
truth is, I really did like exploring even before I left for
go.
China.
Right.
So it just seemed natural. When I heard about it, I wasn't scared. I was
Mhm.
just like, this sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
China?
Yeah.
Never crossed my mind to go there,
Right.
but now I'm just excited. I really want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't have much of a an emotional jump to make, but what was it like physically to decide to pack up yourself and leave? And you also didn't
Hard.
finish a degree, so was it like second year or?
Yeah, I left in my second year.
Mhm.
It would have meant not finishing that final year and just figuring stuff out. So it was a risk,
Mhm.
but I was just so excited about it. And physically, not being in Jamaica, that probably was harder than anything else
Mm-hmm.
because I have my routine. I go to UE. I had my car.
Yeah.
I was driving to UES, picking up my friends. We were heading over to UTech to see the rest of you guys.
Right.
You know, I had my routine. I had my, my little dates or whatever. Like, I love Jamaica.
Life was good.
Life was good.
Life was good.
I was-
College life.
Girl, I wasn't running away from my thing. Okay, UE was the bomb. Wednesdays, into Wednesdays,
Right.
we be going out.
Wait,
you have the
Thursdays?
freedom. Was it Thursday or Wednesday?
Thursdays. Mhm.
One of them, man.
Yeah.
You know where they go, man. I had a good time. I was loving it. So having to tear myself away from that,
Right.
to the unknown,
Right.
that was scary. That was a scary part.
And what about your parents? Like, I know they're supportive, but was it
Yeah.
also hard for them, or were they kind of like, baby bird, like we know you're
Yes.
okay, but or was like you live with your mom, your dad is also close by, like were they more tearful or were they like how was
Yeah.
it for them?
We all cried.
Yeah.
We all cried, but it was like I cried because we've never been apart
Mm-hmm.
like that. However, they were also happy for me. They understood because they know like I love to travel. I'd always loved traveling and driving around. So they could understand and they were excited for me because I was excited.
Yeah.
So they're that supportive. If I had said this is too scary, I'm not comfortable, I don't want to go, my parents would say that's okay too.
That's fine.
Like that's how they are.
I love that.
Yeah. So they said they're excited for me to go, but then ball with me and leave.
Yeah.
Or-
And that's a big thing because if you felt like you had a lot of, I mean, it's your life, but if you felt like there was a lot of like unsurety on their side, it would have made you second guess.
Absolutely,
like,
we're that close.
Yeah, yeah,
Me and my mom and my dad were so close.
Right.
So having their support made it a lot easier to go.
Yeah, that's good. All right, you've made a decision. Everybody ball, everybody, but you're in there.
Yeah.
We are in China. Where did you go first? Were you always in Beijing?
No, I was in a small city.
Okay.
I mean, Beijing is like a top tier 1 city.
Right.
Where I went was, I don't even know, countryside.
Yeah.
It was
rural, like you'd say it's rural.
It was a little more rural, but it could be worse.
Okay.
They still had a little city for itself, so it was
What's it called?
Shanxi.
Mm-hmm.
So Shan means mountain, Shi means west in Chinese, so literally it's like in the west, kind of west, of Beijing.
Okay.
So to get to Beijing would have been maybe a 3 or 4 hour train ride. So it's not that far, but still two very drastically different
3
places.
hours on a train though, that's still a
Yeah.
decent amount of time. I
Yeah.
know it's not bad, but if you think
Yeah.
about how
It
fast
is.
a train can go.
True.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
quite relative.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't in no top tier 1 city like Beijing or Shanghai. I'm telling you, I was the only black girl in my whole university. Now
The whole
the
university.
whole university, and this is a big university. I was studying at
Oh my goodness.
yes. I was at Taiwan University of Technology.
Mhm.
That's what it was called, and it's one of the best engineering schools in the country.
But you're not
right?
an engineer.
But I'm not an
So
engineer.
how did that go?
However, they had a Chinese language program at the school. They had like a humanities, I guess that would be social sciences or humanities. They had that section too.
Gotcha.
But they're just more known
for
for
engineering.
an engineer.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went there for to learn Chinese language and culture. Shock. It was just a huge culture.
So tell me what it feels like. So okay, first of all, let's take a step back. So we're coming back to that, but what does it feel like? Like for example, when you come off a plane in Jamaica after a while, the heat feels different. Sometimes you can notice a smell. Like, did you notice things off the bat when you got to mainland China?
Gray.
Gray?
Very gray.
Like London gray?
Like, I wouldn't say London's polluted type of gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess basically it's like that. But the air was.
But no, London could be like weather gray too.
That's the thing. So London can be weather gray, but this was pollution gray. Okay, so when I remember it being smoggy. I remember wondering, what did I do? This is not what I expected. I remember a lot of people crowded.
Even though it wasn't a big city?
Even though it wasn't a big city, but like China's just
it's
overpopulated. So it's just a lot of people, and there are no faces like mine. No one looks like me. Even at the time I went with, there were 3 other students with me, but the other 2 were Chinese Jamaican.
Oh, okay.
So they're Chinese looking in appearance, and then my other friend, she was the only other girl there with me. She is of Colombian descent. So she has straight hair, European features, So it's the 4 of us, and I'm the only black one in there. So it was just such a shock to just step out that airport and see a sea of Chinese people. Everyone's different, and then there are people, they're just staring at me.
Yeah.
So that was the scene for when I just got there.
So you're a super confident person in general, like you're super charismatic. Do you feel like being so like noticing that, did it make you feel self-conscious? Like they're self-conscious, everybody's staring at me, but did it actually make you feel like social anxiety or anything like that, or was it just okay, I am there for you, and you just kind of kept it pushing?
I didn't feel any sense of, I didn't feel a lack of confidence. It was still there. I was still like curious. I'm a very curious person, so I was like, all right, I don't know how we're going to communicate, but I'm gonna talk to these people at some point.
Right.
And finally I can use the basic Chinese I learned in Jamaica. I can put it to use.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I realized, wait, my Chinese is not that great. I have so much more to learn. But I wasn't scared at all.
Okay, so your main thing at the time then was education. So you got a master's degree, but was it like the bachelor's and then into the master's, or was it just straight into the master's degree?
No, so when I spent that first year, my scholarship was only for 1 year. It was just for 1 year. So that's why I didn't want to miss out on it. That first year, we did intensive Chinese courses. It was 4 hours of straight Chinese every day for a year, right? So after I did that, I got a certificate to show my proficiency and in the language and cultural studies, right? Did exams, did our cumulative graduation, everything. And then I realized, then another opportunity came up to get another scholarship at the same school for another program. It's like probably 2013, like a year or 2 long program to keep studying Chinese. Because there are 6, to put it in perspective, there are 6 levels of proficiency in Chinese, a measurement called HSK. Okay. So when I left Jamaica, I would have probably passed HSK 1, maybe HSK 2. That year I spent studying, I would have bumped up to a level 3. Okay. Moving on to 4.
Your girl is smart.
Yes. I tried. And then the scholarship program came up where, you have the opportunity to go even higher. So I did that. And for the next few years, and it took me up to the 5.
Ooh.
Now you need at least a 5 to be able to study in a regular university, a regular degree program. So I got up to the 5. And once I was there, then I applied for a scholarship to do my master's. So, so I spent probably 3 years of studying Chinese before I even got to the master's in 2015. Yeah.
So in that 3 years, what was life like for you? And like, what was community like? And like, what was it being like? So at first, you're the only one at university. Did other students come in?
Eventually, it was a fairly new scholarship, fairly new program. So it was, as I said, me and those other 3 Jamaicans. Then there was a guy from Germany. And we bonded together as expats.
Okay.
So that was my original family right there. And we're still in touch and still love each other up to this day.
Yeah.
Because no one can relate to that experience of being, the foreign students there. And then in terms of other foreign students there, it was just Afghanis. There were just tons of students from Afghanistan.
So other Asian countries.
Other Asian countries. And that's what made up the international department. But we all bonded on that. Even though there are lots of the Afghanis who speak English, we could speak Chinese to each other, basic Chinese. And the community, what I loved about that life is you just bond instantly because we're out of home, we're fish out of water. So it's like, okay, we're gonna be friends. I didn't know how to use chopsticks at the time, but the Afghanis were there much longer than me. So I remember like the first few weeks there, they would like feed me. They were so nice.
So is it impolite to use Western implements? Like you can't use forks?
It's not that we just didn't have it. We just didn't have it. They had some spoons.
Yeah. But you're not, and also when you go, you're not thinking to bring a spoon and a fork.
You're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about that.
Wow.
So I get to the cafeteria, first week of school, 2-6. I'm 20. This is my first time living outside the country.
Right.
And I'm trying to use it, can't use it well. My Afghani friends, just known them a few days. He said, oh, make sure, I'll help you. And he uses chopsticks and feeding
you. Oh,
so nice. So the community was there already within the school. And we all had classes together, so it made it easier to bond.
That's amazing. Because community is important. That's literally what's going to make or break. So I have a question now. So you are, because basically at that time, we would have been graduating, you like out here when you left us. So were you thinking about, I'm not in a negative comparison, but did you often think about like, well, if you had stayed, what it would have been, or were you just kind of present where you were and moving forward?
A little bit of me felt like when graduation pictures came out and I saw yours and Kadiak's and all our girls, I was just like, wow, I did miss a monumental moment, I felt. However, I didn't regret my decision, and thankfully I was able to transfer the credits from that program I did the first year to UE. It was a battle though, but they accepted it. And I did technically graduate.
No, because it makes sense. So let me tell you, because for me, I was trying to do the math.
Right.
No, because I was like, okay, left in second year, but we have a master's, so we don't get to that yet. But I'm like, but usually for a master's, you have to have a bachelor's.
They took my credits. I was fighting tooth and nail from abroad, trying to convince them, these grades are legit, this is a legit program.
Right.
My mom was in Jamaica as well. She
was doing the work, the legwork.
Yes.
Big up you, Miss Berletta.
Big up Berletta. So thankfully it transferred that. And so I didn't get to experience graduation like everyone else. But I got the bachelor's, I got my certificate, my name on it, everything. So I'm not even mad at that.
No, that's amazing. Okay, so take us, so you've gotten through this Chinese proficiency program, now you can get into the other university, and what are you doing there?
So there I'm doing international trade and lots of focus on economics. So
did you like econ before? You would
I
do
did
it.
econ in Jamaica in those first 2 years. So I thought this was cool. I liked it. It's not a big deal. It was nothing like what I learned in
Oh
Jamaica.
my god, on steroids.
It was economics on 1,000
Oh my
on
goodness.
steroids.
Yeah.
It was hard, and then I'm the only foreign student in my class. Everyone else is Chinese because I'm in a Chinese university, and the language is Chinese. My teachers are all Chinese. Everyone's Chinese. I had to speak Chinese. As I said, you have to be level 5 to get in, right? So we had to do econometrics, and the hardest.
The only reason I know about that is from Crazy Rich Asians and the professor, I think. But yes, that is intense.
It's very intense.
Yeah.
And then I can't even ask somebody, can you explain this part in English? This is, challenging. My textbooks were in Chinese. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was not like, so, those were it was a 3-year master's program. It was probably the hardest 3 years of my life.
Yeah. So so what was leading up to graduation? Now you start to have a little bit more, like at this point, your grocery shopping, like you've been there for a while.
Yes.
Did you start to branch out more outside from school, or were you still kind of insulated in the school community?
I did start reaching out and branching out. I had as I said, there's another Jamaican girl that was with me, Danielle Marzuka. She's my good friend now. I had her, and she was such a social butterfly.
I met her, yeah.
Oh yeah, you met her, right? So when you go to maybe a supermarket, or you say you're gonna hit up a pub or whatever, and you find out where the foreigners go, the older foreigners in the city, we're able to meet some new people. And there's this spot that a foreigner opened there. He's an American guy, and it was called Walden's. And we would go to Walden's and meet other people from around the world. This wasn't many, because it's a small city, but it was cool because we made friends with more Americans, people from, Europe, all of Australia, and that we formed another big community there. Because it's like, okay, foreigners unite. We're all strange-looking people, compared to what we're seeing around us. So we all bonded over that. So we had, we celebrated holidays together, Christmas together, Halloween. Even though I'm not a Halloween person, whatever, you probably wear a costume. They had, So we had those Western holidays, and that's what bonded us.
Yeah.
And we were all together probably every other week.
Yeah, you have to survive with your sanity, right?
Yeah, you have no family there.
Right. So were you able to come home? Like in that time you were there, how long were you there? Like by the time you were in the master's program till the end, between the start and the end, how long was it?
2012 to I graduated in 2017.
So about 5 years,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah.
How many times did you get to come home in that time?
I probably got to come home maybe. I could amount at times, 3 times. Because, when school's out, I have so much holidays. I have Christmas holidays, I have Chinese New Year, I have Western New Year, I have summer's national holiday. There are countless holidays. Okay. So as long as I had the cash, which, I had the help of my parents if I needed. And I was also tutoring English on the side. So I was able to afford it.
So that also helps you to integrate now, and also so you started to. So when did you start tutoring?
I started tutoring even before I left Shanxi. Before I went to my master's program in 2015 to Beijing, because people found out we have more native English speakers there, and they approached me to ask, can you teach me English? Teach me English. And I was like, well, sure.
Right.
So I was just collecting money left, right, and center. So I said, okay, this is great.
Right.
I never planned to be a teacher either.
Right.
Never in my life. I thought.
I never saw it before. And not because you weren't kidding. Like, this girl is so smart. And like I said, she's like really charismatic. But I mean, I don't know. And I just didn't see teaching.
I never saw it either.
But I also see how you'd be good at it. But I just didn't see it at first.
Never saw it. But my mom was a teacher way back.
I did not.
She went to Shortwood Teachers College.
Stop it.
Yeah, so she was a teacher at one point. So it's not like I have teachers in my family.
That's crazy.
But for me to be a teacher, that never crossed my mind. I had zero interest.
So basically, yeah, so as you're there, you're adapting and you're discovering different parts of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're meeting new people.
Yes.
And you're coping in the space as well. And you're more like you're surviving.
Yeah.
Right, so you have money now, a little bit. Like your money, separate from your parents' support.
Yes,
and
for the first time,
yeah, which is cool. What was that like for you? Like you have that's like a viable career option.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you see it as that, or just like I'm surviving, or this is a viable career option?
As a teacher?
Yeah.
I saw it as a way to support my desires, my dreams. That's really what it was. Honestly, I did have fun teaching because the kids love me and I love the kids for loving me, right? However, they drove me crazy and I knew that my future wouldn't be teaching. Okay. So I was happy to stick with my programs and to get where, my actual career goals were, but no, I just saw it as a means of supporting my lifestyle, being able to travel around the world, and be independent, spend money on what I want to spend it on. So.
Gotcha. All right, so let's come towards the end of your time in China now. Like, what's the decision making for saying, okay, I'm going home? Like, did you know you wanted to go home when you got there on day one? You said eventually I'm going home, and when did that? Like, what's the process, the mental process for getting there?
Wow, that's a very good question. When did I realize? At the time, like when I first went, I didn't see the going home part yet. I was just living in the moment. So I enjoyed the first year, second year, third year of getting my certificates and so on. Then going into my master's, I moved to Beijing for my master's. So it was a whole new level of excitement. No, I'm in a big city, which means tons more foreigners, a lot more food options, lots of events. I was like, I love it here. I'm not ready to leave. I made some great friends from all over the world. So I didn't have going home in sight up until graduation, right? Then after that, I graduated in 2017. I realized, whoa. No, real life really starts. I'm not a student anymore. This is a crossroads. However, as I told you, people are approaching me to teach them. So the opportunities are coming in to teach and to make a substantial amount of money. So I could have continued I decided there were two routes to take at the time. I could continue on this path, teach full time, still have more holidays and more money. Or go back home, yes, I'll be closer to my family and friends, but what exactly am I doing again?
Right.
Because it seems like there's a rat race going on back home.
Yes.
People are just in a hamster wheel. Right. And I'm living this crazy life.
Right.
Which way am I gonna go? I didn't think about it that long. I didn't.
Right.
So up until after 2017, I ended up teaching after that for like 4 or 5 years.
So was this like still individual clients or private, like schools?
Oh, now that I graduated, I can go into schools. Because then it's not legal to be a full-time student and learn full-time. You're not allowed. But because I was just tutoring in living rooms, I could get away with it.
Right.
But now that I graduated, I can actually sign a contract, get health insurance, get whatever benefits, accommodation allowances, and so on. So when that presented itself after graduation, I said, okay, I'm going to stick with this for a while. I can save, I can travel, explore the world. And Jamaica will happen when it happens.
Right.
But eventually, the life of being an expat, you get really close to people, and then they leave. Beijing was such a transit city. I mean, I'd be dating this guy one day, the next day I find out he had to fly back to Egypt or whatever. It's so there was no stability in that sense. Some friendships could last past the returning back home, some couldn't. And that's when I realized I can't be here forever. Yeah, so that's when I realized it was, a couple years into my job working in an international school, and my friends were dwindling teaching was starting to become very draining because I liked it, but it wasn't my passion.
Right.
And it was just starting to wear on me. That's when I realized I need a plan B. I have to leave at some point.
But was leaving meant
Leaving meant
anywhere or leaving meant home at this time?
At that time, it could have been either one.
Okay.
It could have been either one. At one point, I actually thought of moving to Canada, and I started the application, and then I realized, wait a minute, I don't have no family in Canada. I'm kind of expensive. What's am I doing?
Yeah.
It's cold.
Right.
So at first, I was wholeheartedly going to move to Canada in 2019 after my first 2020 after my first contract or whatever. But then I changed my mind, and then COVID happened, and then that just changed everything.
Let's talk about COVID, and you were in China, which, depending on who you ask, might say that was like the epicenter or where things started, and we were watching how they reacted to it first about the rest of the world. So you weren't necessarily close to Wuhan, but you were in China, and that meant following everything that all the measures they took. So what were some of those measures, and like were you there at the time?
But at the start of COVID, when it happened, it was a Chinese national holiday, and I traveled every single holiday. So I was on a flight. It literally hit the same week the holiday started, and I was already on a flight to the Middle East. And as soon as I got off the plane, that's when I heard the virus is not being contained. It's spread from Wuhan. It's in Beijing now. It's spreading like wildfire. Don't come back to China. This was my employer at the time saying, wherever you are, just stay there. And then, I was happy about it. I said, you don't have to tell me twice. I'll enjoy my holiday, right? So, but at the time I thought, maybe in a month I'll be back. I didn't get to go back to China for another 10 months. So COVID changed a lot of things. I didn't experience the first brutal part of it. But eventually, when they were able to get special allowances for people to fly in, commercial flights weren't working, but you could get some special allowances.
Like employment
for employment. Yeah. So if you're previously employed in China, now we can squeeze you back in. And so when I did get back in there, no, it was like, you're in, you cannot leave. You cannot.
Was that hard?
That was very hard. That was painful, almost. I just had the best 10 months back home with my family and friends. I was still getting paid. I was working online from an island. Amazing. I could be by the beach working. It was so hard. I had my mom there, my dad there, my little brother and sister. I had to leave them again. I had to leave them after bonding, but it was very hard to leave. And I was in a relationship at the time as well. I had a whole boyfriend in Jamaica. I didn't expect that to happen. And then to tell him that I had to leave, that was very emotional for both of us. So it was not the easiest thing going back. I almost thought maybe I should stay. But I always had some anxiety about coming back home. Aside from the reverse culture shock, it's also just the adjustment of being in the workforce, because I know that salaries, first of all, it's you can get a job down here, but it kind of is a struggle when you look at cost of living and what the average salary is. So especially working in government, and I knew that's where I would probably end up working. So with all of that considered, I realized I'm not ready to make this jump yet. It's too big of a jump. I'm gonna go back.
So what did you do? Okay, but you knew you wanted to. So what did you do in that time? Okay, you're back in China now. All you can do is work. And stay home. You said it was really hard.
It was hard.
Like you just eating food and just like.
That's all I could do. That's all I could do. We had to get tested every 2 days at your nearest testing center, which was probably every other block.
It wasn't like
in your nose. That was horrible. That was a horrible feeling. I had to do quarantine for 3. Just to come back to China was a whole process. I had to be in quarantine for 3 weeks. I was by myself. 4 walls. That is it. I had a TV. For food, they put the food at the door. Knock on it, walk away, and you go in, you take your food, it's cold. it's wet sometimes. You could only eat what they gave you in quarantine. So it was just not the China I remember before COVID. That's the best way for me to put it. It was a different kind of China. So yeah.
Okay, so you're at a party, you're working, you want to come back. What do you put in place? Or what do you do to make sure when you come home for good, you're good?
Boy, at the time though, I still, as I said, I wasn't sure of myself moving back to Jamaica. So I knew I wanted to badly, but I just didn't know where to start. I really didn't know where to start. It's like, okay, do I look for a place? Does my mom help me look for a place? Well, maybe she can help me get a job at her company. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So because I was coming up to the end of my contract in 2021, I had the choice to sign another 2-year contract teaching or to come home. But because of my anxiety about coming back home, I had a really bad anxiety about it. I didn't want to come home feeling like a loser. Like I'm just starting from zero and everyone's up in their positions and so on. I signed the contract again out of fear that I didn't have much to go back home to. So I never planned on coming back home just yet. I signed the 2 years to give myself more time to decide what I will really